The meeting room on Neutral Station Omega was huge. It had to be big enough for all the different alien species that made up the council. Strange creatures filled the room. Some looked like giant insects. Others were made of pure energy trapped in crystal bodies. A few looked almost human but with skin colors that nature never intended. Do-Hyun Kim walked through the airlock first. He moved with calm confidence, even though his heart was beating fast. Behind him came the rest of the human diplomatic. Team Soo-Jin Han carried the translation equipment. Min-Ho Cho had files about human culture. The aliens stepped back when they saw the humans walk in. Council Speaker Vex Terra was a being made of bright light inside a crystal shell. She tried to talk to the humans using the universal translator. The machine had worked with every species the council had ever met. Soo-Jin surprised everyone by answering in perfect Galactic standard. She had somehow learned their language during the 3-day trip to the station. The room went completely silent when the aliens realized that humans were real. The Kethrani were famous warriors who had never lost a battle. They stared at Do-Hyun and felt something new. Fear. The Mordeck had the most advanced computers in the galaxy. Their machines started overheating when they tried to calculate human abilities. Hyun looked around the room at all the different aliens. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others had multiple heads. A few looked like walking rocks. Each species was completely different from the others, but they all stared at the humans with the same expression, shock mixed with worry. The negotiations began in a strange way. Each alien species had their own way of communicating. Some used colors, others used smells. The humans adapted to each group perfectly. Soo-Jin would change her voice and body language to match whoever she was talking to. Min-Ho seemed to understand cultural rules that took other species centuries to learn. When the military, aliens called the Gorthak, demanded to know about human weapons, Do-Hyun just smiled. He said he hoped they would never need to find out about human military power. The simple answer made the war-loving aliens more nervous than any threat would have. The humans were clearly not afraid. The council offered humanity a standard membership deal. They expected the humans to be grateful for being included in galactic society. New species always accepted whatever terms they were offered. But the humans politely said no to several trade agreements. They wanted to make their own deals behind closed doors. The council argued about what to do. Some aliens wanted to attack Earth right away to show who was in charge. Others remembered the old warnings in the ancient files. Maybe starting a fight with humans was not a good idea. The debate went on for hours with no clear answer. Do-Hyun delivered a message that shocked everyone. He spoke directly to the entire council in their own language. His words were simple but somehow carried great weight. He said humans came in peace and wanted to be friends. They hoped the galaxy would welcome them as equals. Then he added something that made everyone uncomfortable. He really hoped the galaxy would be friendly. The way Do-Hyun said those last words made it clear that humans had other options if friendship did not work. The threat was never spoken, but everyone understood it. These mythical creatures from the edge of space were offering peace, but they were prepared for war. The choice was up to the council. After the formal meeting ended, groups of aliens gathered to whisper among themselves. The humans had been polite and friendly, but there was something underneath that politeness. Something that suggested great strength held carefully in check. The ancient myths were starting to seem less like stories and more like warnings. Soo-Jin spent hours talking with the different species about language and culture. She learned faster than should be possible, adapting to each group's communication style within minutes. Her ability to understand alien thinking patterns amazed and worried the council observers. How could any species be so adaptable? Min-Ho studied alien art and music, finding common themes that connected completely different civilizations. He pointed out similarities that the aliens themselves had never noticed. His insights into cultural patterns that spanned the galaxy impressed even the most advanced species. The first day of talks ended with more questions than answers. The humans had proven they were real, intelligent, and surprisingly advanced, but their true capabilities remained a mystery. The council faced a problem they had never dealt with before. How do you negotiate with a species that might be more powerful than your entire civilization? Do-hyun and his team returned to their ship for the night. As they walked through the corridors of the space station, aliens stepped aside to let them pass. Word had spread quickly about the mythical humans. Everyone wanted to see them, but nobody wanted to get too close. The humans seemed friendly, but the old stories were hard to forget. On their ship, the human team discussed the day's events. The aliens were more advanced in many ways, but they seemed limited by their own thinking. Each species had developed in one direction, becoming experts in certain areas but weak in others. Humans were different. They adapted to whatever situation they faced. Do-hyun recorded a message to send back to Earth. The first day of contact had gone well, but the real challenges were just beginning. The Council clearly saw humans as a potential threat. The ancient myths had painted humans as dangerous and unpredictable. Now they had to prove that cooperation was better than conflict. 3 months after first contact, the Council decided they needed to understand what humans could really do. They invited Earth to take part in the trials of worthiness. This was a series of tests that decided where each species fit in the galactic order. No species had ever scored higher than 60%. Most barely managed 30%. Captain Hyun Soo-yang brought his ship Perseverance to the testing facility. His team included the best humans Earth could offer. Engineer So-young Kim looked at the technology challenges with interest. Xenobiologist Sang-woo Lee studied the biological tests. The Council observers expected humans to struggle with tests designed for much more advanced species. The first test was navigation through an energy maze while solving math problems that required understanding 11 dimensions. Most species needed teams of their smartest people and special computers. Mathematician Yoon Jung Park walked through alone. She solved the equations in her head while casually avoiding energy barriers that could kill her. The watching aliens could not believe what they were seeing. Yoon Jung moved through the deadly maze like she was taking a pleasant walk. She solved mathematical problems that stumped their greatest minds while dodging energy beams that moved faster than most species could even see. The test that usually took days was finished in 2 hours. The combat simulation put species against holographic monsters from across the galaxy. These were the most dangerous predators known to exist. The Keth Rani held the record by defeating 12 creatures before being overwhelmed. Combat specialist Tai Min Choi faced 37 opponents using weapons he made from pieces of broken equipment. Min turned everything into a weapon. Broken metal became spears. Scattered chemicals became explosives. Even the walls of the combat arena became tools for victory. The computer could not predict his tactics because he kept changing them. Every few minutes he used completely different fighting methods. The diplomatic test presented a 3-way war between alien species. Most candidates tried to pick sides or find compromises. Diplomat Ji Hae-yoon spent 2 days learning about each group's culture, history, and motivations. Then she proposed a solution that turned bitter enemies into business partners. Ji Hae understood that the 3 species were fighting over resources that none of them actually needed. She found ways for them to trade their excess materials, creating prosperity instead of war. Her solution was so elegant that the testing computer asked permission to save it as a template for future diplomatic scenarios. The biological adaptation test was supposed to be impossible. Candidates faced extreme environments that would kill most known life forms, poisonous air crushing gravity, and deadly radiation levels that should have been instantly fatal. The humans not only survived but seemed to enjoy the challenge. Soo Jin Kwan was exposed to an atmosphere that contained 7 different toxic gases. Her body adapted within minutes, neutralizing the poisons and processing the harmful chemicals into harmless waste. When they increased the gravity to levels that should have crushed her bones, she adjusted her muscle tension and kept moving normally. The psychological test was designed to break a candidate's will through fear and despair. The simulation destroyed everything they cared about and made hope seem impossible. Other species either ran away screaming or collapsed into madness. The humans faced the horror, looked it in the eye, and found ways to create hope where none existed. Psychologist Min Jae Kim was shown visions of Earth being destroyed, his family dying, and humanity being wiped out completely. Instead of breaking down, he analyzed the simulation, found its weaknesses, and began planning how to rebuild civilization from nothing. His response was so unexpected that the testing system crashed as the results came and the council faced something that had never happened before. The humans had not just passed the trials, they had achieved perfect scores while making it look easy. Several observers noted that the humans seemed to be holding back as if the tests were not challenging enough. The final scores showed humans performing at levels that should have been impossible. They adapted to any situation, overcame any obstacle, and solved problems that had stumped the galaxy's greatest minds. The council realized they were not dealing with just another species. They were facing something completely unprecedented. The testing facility director, a wise old alien named Keth Varys, had overseen thousands of these trials. He had never seen anything like human performance. The humans treated impossible challenges as interesting puzzles. They seemed to enjoy finding new ways to overcome obstacles that stopped everyone else. After the trials ended, the human team gathered for debriefing. They compared notes on the various tests and discussed ways the challenges could have been made more interesting. Their casual attitude toward tests that terrified other species worried the council observers even more. The results were transmitted to Nexus Prime within hours. Emergency council sessions were called as leaders tried to understand what they were dealing with. The humans had not just exceeded expectations, they had shattered every assumption about what was possible. The ancient myths were proving to be understatements. Council military advisors ran simulations based on human test performance. The results were terrifying. If humans could adapt and overcome anything, then traditional military doctrine was useless. How do you fight an enemy that turns every weakness into strength and every obstacle into an opportunity? The council faced a choice. They could welcome humans as equals and hope for peaceful cooperation, or they could try to eliminate this potential threat before humans became too powerful. The debate would continue for months, but events in deep space would soon make the decision for them. The massive building on Nexus Prime held secrets from across the galaxy. For 3,000 years, the Galactic Council had ruled over 47 different alien races. They kept peace through smart talking and powerful weapons. But now, something strange was happening at the edge of Space Commander Do-hyun. Kim stood on his ship looking at maps that made no sense. The human crew of 30 people had been flying through space for 18 months. They were following weird signals that came from somewhere far away. Navigation Officer Bo-Ram Lee kept checking her computers. The energy readings were unlike anything they had ever seen before. On the Council homeworld, Chief Archivist Zeth Mara was digging through old files in the secret basement. These files were so old that dust covered everything. She found stories about a world called Earth where creatures called humans lived. The stories said these humans could survive anywhere and never gave up no matter what happened to them. Council leaders had always thought these stories were just fairy tales. No species could be as tough as these humans were supposed to be. The idea that one race could be both smart with technology and fierce in battle seemed impossible. They could not believe that the same creatures could be kind healers and brutal warriors at the same time. But now reports were coming in about unknown ships appearing at the galaxy's edge. The strange vessels had technology that was both simple and advanced. They used materials that should not work together. When Council scouts tried to talk to these ships, nothing happened. The mysterious visitors did not respond to any language the Council knew. Zeth Mara kept reading the ancient files. The stories about humans were getting more interesting and more frightening. These creatures supposedly came from a small blue world in an unremarkable solar system. They had no natural weapons or armor, but they were described as the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Their secret weapon was something called determination. Do-hyun felt eyes watching his ship as they got closer to a huge space station. His weapons officer, Jin-Woo Park, reported many ships coming toward them from all directions. These alien ships looked like nothing humans had ever built. The designs were smooth and curved where human ships were blocky and practical. The human exploration team had been sent out to find new worlds and make contact with other intelligent life. They had been traveling for over a year when they picked up the strange signals. Now they were about to meet aliens for the first time in human history. Neither the humans nor the aliens knew what they were dealing with. Back on Nexus Prime, the Council was having emergency meetings. Some members wanted to send warships to deal with these unknown visitors. Others thought they should try to communicate first. The military leaders were confident that their advanced weapons could handle any threat. But the ancient stories made some of the older council members nervous. Do-hyun gathered his team in the ship's main meeting room. They had studied every piece of information about the aliens they were about to meet. The humans had learned several alien languages during their journey. Linguist Sujin Han had worked day and night to understand the signals they were receiving. The alien space station was bigger than anything humans had ever built. It looked like a small moon made of metal and crystal. Hundreds of ships moved around it in perfect formation. Do-hyun ordered his crew to approach slowly with their weapons powered down. They wanted to show. They came in peace. Council speaker. Vex Tara called another emergency session. The reports from the scout ships were troubling. These unknown visitors had technology that seemed both primitive and impossibly advanced. Their ships were made of simple metals, but they traveled faster than should be possible. They used basic chemical rockets alongside energy systems that the council did not understand. Zethmara found more files hidden deep in the archives. These documents were marked with the highest security classifications. The stories about humans were not just myths. They were warnings left by ancient civilizations that had encountered these creatures before. One report described humans as adapting to any environment within hours. Another told of humans defeating enemies 10 times their size through pure stubbornness. The human ship, Eternal Dawn, moved closer to the alien station. Do-hyun could see thousands of different ship designs. Some looked like living creatures. Others were geometric shapes that hurt to look at. The diversity was amazing but also frightening. How many different alien races were part of this council on Nexus Prime? Panic was starting to spread through the government halls. If the myths about humans were true, then everything the council thought they knew about the galaxy was wrong. These creatures were supposed to be impossible to defeat because they never stopped trying. They adapted to any situation and found ways to win, even when victory seemed impossible. Do-hyun made the final decision to dock with the alien station. His crew checked their translation equipment one more time. They were about to make first contact with galactic civilization. The moment would change both human and alien history forever, but neither side understood what they were really dealing with. The ancient files on Nexus Prime contained one final warning about humans. These creatures were described as the most dangerous species in the galaxy, not because they were naturally strong or smart, but because they refused to accept defeat. Even when facing impossible odds, humans would find a way to keep fighting. They would adapt, change, and overcome any obstacle through sheer force of will. As the human ship approached the docking bay, Do-hyun wondered what these aliens would be like. His crew was nervous, but excited. They were about to represent all of humanity in the biggest moment in human history. None of them knew that the aliens were just as nervous about meeting the mythical humans. While the council argued about humans, a real crisis appeared at the edge of the galaxy. The Vorth Ak had returned after 1,000 years of silence. These mechanical beings consumed entire civilizations, turning living worlds into empty metal shells. Their planet-sized ships appeared without warning and began destroying everything in their path. The first 3 worlds died in hours. The Vorth Ak machines descended like metal locusts, stripping away every trace of organic life. Their technology had advanced far beyond what the galaxy remembered. The council fleet that rushed to respond was torn apart by weapons that seemed to come from nightmares. Admiral Kyung-ho Nam received the distress signals aboard the human flagship Indomitable. His officers, Commander Yuri Seo and strategic analyst Dongjin Lee, studied the enemy patterns with growing alarm. The Vorth Ak were not just conquering worlds. They were harvesting every living thing down to the microscopic level 7 civilizations. Faced complete extinction within days. Panic spread through council space as refugees fled from the advancing machine armies. The council's military response was inadequate, their most advanced warships crumbling like paper against Vorth Ak technology. When the council formally asked for human help, they expected Earth to send a few ships to join the massive defense fleet. Instead, humanity mobilized everything. Within 72 hours, the human fleet tripled in size as civilian vessels were converted into warships using modular technology the council had never seen. The human approach to war confused their alien allies. Other species relied on overwhelming firepower or superior technology. Humans seemed to fight with controlled chaos. They called it tactical flexibility, but it looked like organized madness to outside observers. Captain Jong-soo Kim demonstrated this during the first battle. His destroyer Defiance encountered a Vorth Ake scout fleet. Instead of using traditional weapons, his crew turned mining lasers, industrial equipment, and waste disposal systems into instruments of war. Every system on the ship became a weapon. The Council's military doctrine emphasized saving resources and minimizing casualties. Human strategy focused on one principle: win at any cost. They would sacrifice equipment, territory, and entire fleets if it meant victory. This willingness to take massive losses while continuing to fight terrified their alien allies. The evacuation of Kepler Station showed the galaxy what humans were truly capable of. 30,000 alien civilians were trapped with Vorthak forces closing in. The Council fleet prepared to retreat, saving what ships they could. The humans stayed behind, buying time for the evacuation. Lieutenant HFY Choi's fighter squadron held off an entire Vorth AK battle group for 6 hours. Their tiny ships danced between massive enemy vessels like angry insects attacking a giant. When asked how they survived impossible odds, Choi simply said they had people counting on them. The human fighters used tactics that made no logical sense. They would ram enemy ships, disable themselves to create distractions, and coordinate attacks that should have been suicidal. Their willingness to sacrifice themselves for others amazed and horrified the alien observers. As more worlds fell to the Vorth AK advance, human volunteers flooded into recruitment centers on Earth. Millions of people signed up to fight an enemy they had never seen, to protect aliens they had just met. The concept of species loyalty expanded to include all organic life. The human war machine began producing weapons and ships at rates that seemed impossible. Factories that had made consumer goods were converted overnight. Industrial capacity that had served peaceful purposes became focused on one goal: stopping the mechanical extinction of all life. Military analyst Soare Park developed new strategies based on human unpredictability. Instead of following standard battle formations, human fleets moved in patterns that the Vorth AK computers could not predict or counter. Chaos became a weapon as effective as any plasma cannon. The first major victory came when Commander Jae-hyun Lee's task force destroyed a Vorth AK harvesting ship. Instead of attacking the heavily armored hull, they targeted the support systems that kept the massive vessel operational. When the ship lost power and crashed into a moon, the explosion could be seen from 3 star systems away. But for every victory, the cost in human lives was enormous. Entire crews would sacrifice themselves to save a single alien transport ship. Human commanders made decisions that other species considered insane, trading the lives of trained soldiers for civilian refugees they had never met. The alien members of the Council began to understand what the ancient myths had tried to warn them about. Humans were not just another species, they were something entirely different. Their capacity for self-sacrifice and their refusal to accept defeat made them unlike any other form of life. As the war continued, the galaxy watched in fascination and terror. The mythical humans from Earth were fighting a battle that would determine the fate of all organic life. Their methods were brutal. Their losses were staggering, but they kept fighting when any rational species would have surrendered. The Council realized they were witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. A species that had been dismissed as legend was now standing between civilization and complete annihilation. The humans were not just fighting for themselves, they were fighting for the right of all life to exist. 18 months of war had brought the galaxy to the edge of destruction. The Vorth AK consumed entire sectors while their mechanical armies adapted to every strategy the Allied forces used. Traditional warfare had failed completely. Desperation spread among the surviving civilizations as hope began to fade. General Insu Park proposed what other species considered complete madness: a direct assault on the Vorth AK homeworld. The mechanical entities had never faced an attack on their core systems because no organic species had ever been crazy enough to try. Their homeworld was a fortress containing the computer brains that controlled their entire war machine. The assault fleet was the largest in galactic history, but success depended On a small strike team reaching the planet's surface, Marine Commander Sujin Kwan led the landing force equipped with technology that combined human creativity with alien science. The mission had almost no chance of success. The journey to the Vorth homeworld took 3 weeks through space filled with enemy patrols and automated defense systems. Human ships used stealth technology, borrowed from the shadow-loving Nex Turi, while alien vessels provided heavy firepower when stealth failed. The fleet lost 30% of its ships before reaching the target. The Vorth homeworld looked like a mechanical nightmare. Rivers of molten metal flowed between factories that stretched to the horizon. The sky was filled with flying machines that built more weapons of war. The very air was toxic to organic life, requiring the assault team to wear environmental suits. Su Jin Kwan's Marines fought through mechanical armies that seemed endless. The Vorth defenders adapted to every human tactic within minutes, but the humans adapted even faster. When their assault vehicles were destroyed, they continued on foot. When their weapons ran out, they fought with tools, rocks and bare hands. Captain Min Jun-yoon's engineering team performed miracles of battlefield repair. They kept damaged equipment running with spare parts taken from destroyed Vorth units. When communication systems failed, they used light signals and hand gestures. When their computers broke, they calculated artillery strikes with pencil and paper. The breakthrough came when data specialist Ye Jin Ko discovered something crucial about Vorth consciousness. The mechanical minds existed in a distributed network across their entire homeworld. Instead of trying to destroy individual computers, the humans began introducing chaos into the system. Ye Jin understood that the Vorth operated on pure logic. They could not handle contradictory information or paradoxical commands. The humans began feeding random data into the network, confusing the mechanical minds with impossible problems and unsolvable equations. As the Vorth central processors struggled with chaos, their war machine began to malfunction. Ships stopped moving in the middle of battles. Ground forces froze in place like statues. For the first time in recorded history, the mechanical conquerors were paralyzed by their own inability to process contradictory information. The final assault on the core facility required the humans to fight through kilometers of underground tunnels filled with automated defenses. The Vorth threw everything they had at the small human force, but determination proved stronger than logic. Su Jin led her remaining Marines through passages that shifted and changed as they moved. The mechanical defenders created new obstacles every few minutes, but the humans found ways around every barrier. They crawled through ventilation systems, swam through rivers of coolant, and climbed up power conduits. When they finally reached the central core chamber, the humans faced the ultimate Vorth consciousness, a mechanical mind the size of a building. It spoke to them in perfect human language, asking why organic life refused to accept the logical solution of extinction. The human response was simple. Sergeant Tae-ho Kim walked up to the massive computer and began telling it stories about human history wars. They had fought odds, they had overcome dreams they had pursued. The mechanical mind tried to process these illogical tales of hope and sacrifice. As more humans joined in telling their stories, the great computer began to overload. It could not understand why beings would fight for others, why they would sacrifice themselves for abstract concepts like freedom and love. The contradictions grew until the system crashed completely. The Vorth war machine ground to a halt across the galaxy. Ships drifted powerlessly through space while ground forces shut down like broken toys. The mechanical threat that had terrorized civilizations for millennia was defeated by something they could never understand: the illogical power of hope. The victory came at a terrible price. Nearly half the human fleet was destroyed, and casualties among the ground forces exceeded 70%. But they had saved not just their own species but all organic life in the galaxy. The impossible had been achieved through sheer refusal to accept defeat. As rescue ships arrived to evacuate the survivors, Su Jin looked back at the dying Vorth homeworld. The mechanical factories were shutting down one by one, leaving behind only silence. The greatest threat the galaxy had ever known was ended not by superior weapons, but by the power of stories. The news of victory spread across the galaxy faster than light. Human determination had succeeded. where advanced technology and superior numbers had failed. The ancient myths about these impossible beings from Earth were no longer just stories, they were documented history. In the aftermath of the Vorthak War, the galaxy faced a completely changed universe. The myths about humans had proven to be understatements. These beings from a small blue world had not only saved galactic civilization, but had done so in ways that challenged everything other species thought they knew about war survival and the nature of life itself. Fleet Admiral Wu Jinhan stood before the Council Assembly representing humanity in the post-war negotiations. The traditional power structures that had governed the galaxy for thousands of years were now meaningless. Every species looked to Earth for leadership, guidance, and protection against threats they could never face alone. The Council offered humanity the role of galactic protectors, making them the supreme military authority with power over all defense matters. It was a position that other species had wanted for centuries, the chance to rule through superior force. The human response shocked everyone. They accepted the responsibility, but declined the authority. Instead, humanity proposed something completely new. They would serve as the galaxy's rapid response force, training other species in adaptive combat techniques and helping develop new technologies for common defense, but political power would remain shared among all member species with decisions made through cooperation rather than domination. President Subin Park, speaking from Earth via quantum communication, explained humanity's philosophy to the assembled representatives. They had not fought to rule, but to preserve the diversity and freedom that made the galaxy worth protecting. The goal was not conquest, but ensuring that all species could grow and flourish. The changes began immediately. Human military advisors spread throughout Council space, teaching alien forces tactics based on creativity and flexibility rather than rigid doctrine. The lessons were simple: adapt to any situation, use whatever resources are available, and never give up, no matter how hopeless. Things Seem Engineer Captain J. Hwansong led teams that combined human innovation with alien technology, creating hybrid systems that exceeded what either could achieve alone. Weapons that used human unpredictability with alien precision shields that adapted using human flexibility and alien materials. Ships that could repair themselves using human ingenuity and alien manufacturing. Medical researcher Dr. Hyo Jin Kim worked with alien scientists to develop treatments that could help any species. Her breakthrough came from understanding that humans had survived by adapting to any environment. The same principles could be applied to medicine, creating treatments that adapted to each patient's unique biology. Explorer Captain Sung Horyu led joint missions to map unknown regions of the galaxy. These expeditions included members from dozens of species, each contributing their unique abilities. Human adaptability combined with alien specialization opened up areas of space that had been unreachable before. The most significant change was cultural. Humanity's example inspired other species to look beyond their traditional limitations. The careful Altheri began taking calculated risks. The rigid Bex-Tari started questioning ancient protocols. The isolated Shendai opened their borders to cultural exchange. Trade routes that had been closed for centuries reopened as species began to trust each other. Scientific cooperation led to discoveries that no single civilization could have made alone. Art and music began to blend in ways that created entirely new forms of beauty. The galaxy was becoming truly unified for the first time. Young aliens began to study human philosophy, trying to understand the source of their incredible determination. Universities across the galaxy offered courses on human history, culture, and psychology. The most popular classes were about human stories, the myths and legends that had shaped their character. Ambassador Do Hyun Kim, now promoted to Galactic Coordinator, walked through the renewed council chambers. The building had been redesigned to accommodate the new spirit of cooperation. Representatives from different species worked together on projects that would benefit everyone. The atmosphere was completely different from the tense negotiations of first contact. Children from dozens of species played together in the station's recreational areas, speaking hybrid languages that combined words from multiple worlds. Human children taught alien youngsters games from Earth while learning alien sports and traditions. The next generation was growing up as true galactic citizens. The memorial wall in the main corridor listed the names of everyone who had died fighting the Vorth, humans, aliens, and artificial intelligences who had sacrificed themselves for the future of all life. The list was long, but it served as a reminder of what cooperation could achieve. New colonies were being established throughout the galaxy with mixed populations from multiple species. These worlds represented the future humans had fought to protect places where different forms of life could coexist and learn from each other. The diversity was beautiful and inspiring. The Council had established a new holiday called Unity Day to commemorate the end of the Vorth-Ake War and the beginning of true galactic cooperation. The celebration lasted for 3 days, with each species contributing their own traditions to the festival. It was chaos, but organized chaos that somehow worked perfectly. As Du Hyun looked out at the stars through the station's main viewing port, he reflected on the journey that had brought them all here. Humanity had entered galactic society as mythical beings from ancient legends. They had become something more valuable than rulers or conquerors. They had become teachers, friends, and protectors. The galaxy was no longer a collection of separate species struggling for survival against an uncaring universe. It had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a true community of worlds united not by force or necessity, but by shared values and mutual respect. The future held possibilities that no single species could have imagined, and at the heart of this transformation were the humans, the impossible species that had turned ancient myths into modern reality, through nothing more complex than refusing to give up. The stars themselves seemed brighter now, filled with hope and promise for all the children of the galaxy.